Thank you very much, Sharon. I think one of the very important aspects of this relationship between IFPRI concern and veterinary health is the fact that we're marrying practical on-the-ground experience with policy analysis. And we're trying to bring an analysis of what we are doing on the ground to see what impact it's having. So that's really the context of what I want to talk about. And it's also bringing, I suppose, what Dr. Swaminathan says, it's bringing the human face to some of these issues. So the story I have to tell is about the case study in Korogocho, the largest slum in Africa, in Nairobi. And it's the conditions. I want to talk firstly about the conditions there and how things have changed there. And then I want to talk about 3 interventions that we've been applying and what impact they're having. The reality is that the people in this slum, food prices have increased by 30% over the past 3 years. There's a whole set of reasons underlying that. There's obviously the drought, and there's sort of worldwide commodity markets. But there's the factor that in Kenya, food production has fallen by 30% as a result of a combination of the fallout from the political violence at the end of 2008, and the fact that production was disrupted, and also the drought. And now, more recently, Kenya has been very significantly impacted by the wider East African food crisis. Kenya now provides a home in some refugee camps for 500,000 additional people. A big camp in Dadaab houses nearly 500,000 people. It was built for 90,000. So, what's the impact on the ground in this slum? We were tracking the situation in the early part of this year and found that there was an increase in the number of admissions of severely malnourished children by 62% from January to May of this year. Now, not all of that is due to price increases, but that was affecting. So what I want to talk about briefly are 3 interventions that we've been using to respond to this crisis. The first one was livelihoods development, livelihoods enhancement for people. The second one is cash transfers, and the third one is an urban nutrition program. On the livelihoods, there's a story in this book about a woman called Teresa Wangari, who's looking after 2 of her own children, aged 1 and 5, and 2 of her sister's children. Her sister has died, aged 6 and 7. And she is surviving, and is probably no more than that, and making money by producing petticoats. And she's been helped to do that by a concern program, a concern livelihoods program. But we can see in her story just how difficult it is, and her strategy to cope with as low and probably fluctuating and uncertain income is reflected in foods that she's feeding to her children. And the fact that, as we've seen over the past few years, higher food prices leads to lower quality diets for people, with the knock-on effect that has. The second intervention that we tracked is a cash transfer pilot program, which we operated from November 2009 to October 2010. And that's really a form of social protection. And there's increasingly, I suppose, emphasis going on social protection measures and seeing what impact they're having. The impact in this case, which we measured carefully, was that over this almost 10-month period, the average number of meals that families were eating per day increased from 1.6 to 2.5. The percentage of households who were judged to be severely food insecure fell from 97% to 74%. And the percentage of children in child labour fell from 39% to 12%. So the fact that households were getting relatively small amounts of regular income through a cash transfer system was making a real discernible impact on the livelihoods and on the welfare of those families. And we're using that sort of example to have discussions with the Kenyan government about the possible introduction of a national social protection scheme. And the third area is in the more classical area, third intervention of urban nutrition, which concern has been operating since 2007, very much along the lines of the community management of severe acute malnutrition, CMAP, and using ready-to-use therapeutic food. And over the period from 2007, we treated more than 8,000 children in Nairobi and more than 3,000 in Kisumu, supported 600 women in properly breastfeeding their children and introducing nutrient-rich complementary food once children reach 6 months, and trained over 300 health workers in infant and young child feeding. And critically, and touching on what Dr. Swaminathan concluded, we're in all cases focus on the first 1,000 days, this critical period of intervention where you can, if you do get proper nutrients to children at that stage, you are really preventing stunting, and you are, you're really doing something very good. And I see a sign that I have to stop, but I was finished anyway, so thank you very much.